Hey guys, it's Matt. I've been holding off making this video, but I don't think I can hold off on it any longer. I've just seen recently the Godzilla teams up with King Kong trailer. The Not Nilka's in love with Godzilla for the last 10 years. I think there are reasons for that. We could have fun with that some other time. But now Godzilla's gigantic spines all over his back, magenta. Most of the trailer presentation is magenta with the emerald green. We haven't talked about it in a while. Now, there's very few times when I've said this theory is crazy, where most of you, or the old guard, did not surprise me, even though why should I be surprised, you may say, because we always see things, or usually see things the same way. But this one, it would surprise me if a lot of the old guards like, yeah, Matt, I can see that. This is maybe the craziest thing I've ever put out, and I'm going to keep the jokes to a minimum. I need to appear competent. I need to appear sane. I don't want people going, I spent 3 or 4 years at this channel, and now this is the type of person that I have to deal with. I mean, I have my wits about me, I believe. And I'll try to make this presentation as nuts as it is, as intelligent as I possibly can. And could you imagine when you hear what I'm about to say, if somebody stumbled upon this video? They truly would call a family member to have me put away. So I just sat here for 5 minutes staring at the wall. This is my second re-recording, thinking, how do I even get into this? So when that happens, there's only one way to do it. Just come flat out and say it and hope, one, you stick with me on the back end, and two, I can even justify it or even make sense of this at all. So Matt, stop making excuses and just say it. Okay, but one thing quickly. In terms of what I'm about to talk about, it's not just me. If it was just me and other smart people completely disagreed, I wouldn't be making this presentation. Primarily, Jeff has done a ton of research. He did originally a lot of the research regarding the strange anomalies with the old, we'll just say 7/11/2001 event videos, the strange anomalies that keep coming in the same sort of way. Talked about the potential for retrocausalities in those old videos, where those videos might not have been exactly like that when they were recorded. Well, Jeff agrees. Others agree. Even Steffers might agree with part of this. I don't even think she brought the magenta to my attention, and I don't even think she would fully agree with this, but we'll see. Matt, get to it. Sat here for another 5 minutes. The magenta color is invading digital reality. Now, it's what the magenta color represents, not magenta color on its own. It's a symptom of something. Invading digital reality. We'll start where Jeff and I are. We can't say 100% because, again, it's one of the craziest things of all time. I'm at 99%, maybe 95%. I'm not sure where Jeff is. There are many examples of this, but what's most noticeable to me, and I believe Jeff would agree, is old music videos. The color magenta appears or is prominent in old music videos. What's the problem, you say? The problem is we don't believe the magenta was there when, if you were, say, in the room as the recording was happening, you were in the room in the 1970s when the music video was filmed. It wasn't part of the original music video. If you watch the music video in 1985 or 1990 or whenever, it is part of the music video now. Okay, that all I can say is the magenta has invaded the digital. Does that mean retrocausally we could go back and the magenta was in the room? I don't know that. I will never know that, and this is crazy enough on its own. Okay, we need an example. Here are still frames from the Eagles. I Can't Tell You Why. The magenta hue is all over this video. It's on the hair of the lead singer, then it's all over the drums, but from other angles as the video is shot, doesn't seem to be magenta bulbs or magenta lighting. So the premise is, number one, if we were I'm showing different images. I haven't done this yet. I'm doing the recording first, but you're getting the sense as to how it was a studio recording for the music video, the Eagles, I Can't Tell You Why. If you were in the room during the studio recording, it's likely there wasn't any magenta bulbs. Two, what the crazy thing about it is, if you watched that music video in 1990, or I don't know when it, quote, changed, I don't know what language to use. When you watch the music video, say, a year after it was made, I don't think you would see the magenta color, that pinkish, purplish hue that appears now. Now, there's only two options if you buy that at all. One is the minions, on behalf of Not Milk, have gone back and changed. I can hear some people yelling at me, Matt, a music video that exists on YouTube now obviously could be run through digital filters to bring the magenta hue, and I'm keeping that on the table. Much of the magenta. First off, let me back up to the absolute start. We know the magenta or agenda exists. It is important for the Not Milk or the Asshole Dark at this point in history to push the color magenta onto the population or into this reality. We'll ponder why later or in some other video. That is a fact. All right, that is just so over the magenta presentation, whether you think it's planned or retrocausal, whatever you think it is, it's been so over the top since the Pantone picked it as the color of the year, and now it's in Godzilla. It's all over the place, say the last 3 years. So there is an agenda regarding pushing the magenta. Now, I'm saying what's happening is about as crazy as anybody could possibly imagine. Someone else in our community would probably say to me, Matt, you're going too far. Someone in our community may say to me, look, the creeps are for some reason in love with the magenta. They're pushing it out for whatever reason. It's all manipulated, quote, by hand or through computers. I think there are other things going on, more, quote, I don't know how to talk about it, more supernatural than that. I think everybody would agree there's some weird need for them to push magenta onto the populace, for whatever the reason may be. We'll ponder it later. I'm not just saying this to make an interesting video. I mean, this video is a long time coming. I think we don't ever go far enough. I learned a long time ago, whether it be the appearance of certain gematria or other types of presentations, all we could say, and you've heard me say this a million times, the first grade truther can only look in their own little toy box. The answer must be there. It must fit within the bookends. A truth researcher in, say, 2010 through 2014 notices 33s in license plates during events that, let's just say, are questionable. All those license plates, according to the first grade truther, looking in that same toy box, has to be planted. Always has to be from the Men in Black. We know now it's not that simple. In this case, the first grade truther would say, well, Matt, I agree. I've noticed a lot of this magenta color all over the place, but YouTube is in control of every video they publish on its platform, and YouTube can put the magenta filter in. I don't know. It's not that simple. It's not always the creeps doing it by hand or Men in Black running around in vans. There's a lot going on here that can only be described as supernatural. Jeff and I agree, again, number one, if you were in the room, we're just talking about music videos. There's a lot of other examples. Matt, don't do that. People will think you're crazy. There's a lot of other examples. We'll stick with the music videos for now. If you were in the room during the recording, the magenta color would not have been there, in my or our opinion. I will ask Steffers to specifically tell me what part of this presentation she disagrees with. 2, that when you saw that music video 5 years later, for example, or in the 90s or the last century, whenever, I don't know when this happened, the magenta color would not have been in your viewing of that music video. At least if it was there, it's like it's turned up to 10 on steroids. In some way, I don't know how to describe it, the magenta color has invaded the digital. Now, it's not, again, don't think of the magenta color in this case as like a thing on its own. It's a symptom of something. It's a side effect of something. It represents something. It is not something on its own. Well, I don't think it's something on its own. To me, right now, I favor that it's a symptom of something else. Let me do a brief summary now, because whether you agree with me or not, it's important you at least understand my position. You may disagree with it, but I don't know if what just came out can even be understood. So one more time, backing up or going down the elevator to the absolute first level, okay, we have to have agreement, at least on the first 5 floors or so, for us to move forward. So first floor is, we all here agree that this color magenta is important to, quote, the creeps at this moment in time. So for us to agree at level 1, you just have to say, Matt, I agree. I've noticed so much of the color magenta in the last 3 or 4 years. It's abnormal how it seems to be all over the place. And I agree, Matt, it's not just trendy or the color of the month. A lot of people, of course, would write it off. Well, Matt, next year it'll be another color. No, it's not. It's not that. Okay, it's like a transition in some way from the emerald green to the magenta. We'll talk about it. So it's abnormally pushed. Again, some may say, well, Matt, it's all managed by people. T-Mobile, people sat down and picked the magenta color for whatever they're selling. It may have a dark reason behind it, but it's not supernatural, Matt. It's not this retro causality horse shit, which I firmly believe it is at this point. So does Jeff and others, or I wouldn't be making this presentation. And the asterisk at the bottom of the page over all of this, which I should have said right off the bat, is it doesn't matter what their creepy intentions are. It doesn't work on us. Okay, that's always the good news. It never works on us. It's not going to ever work on us. Whatever they're trying to do, however dark these theories get as to what they're trying to accomplish, I'm firmly convinced it's futile from our perspective. With the armor we've developed. I'm not just saying that to make myself or to you feel good. I truly believe it. There's nothing they can do at this point. We have jumped ship. We are off the path of the masses. Whatever they do, it does not work on us. Remember our strange example from like 2 months ago? That Satan can't just throw you in the back of his trunk in this reality. This reality, in the dark part of it, needs to operate behind a trick. That means it needs your consent. It's not a reality where Satan throws you, he's pretty strong, right? He just throws you in the back of the trunk. You don't have no say. He flexes his muscle, pulled out some sort of a lasso, a demonic Wonder Woman a rope of some kind, throws you. It doesn't work. This reality doesn't work this way. It's always operating behind a trick, which means the power generative source is you. Okay, you need to fall for the trick. So at the first level, if you agree or see that the magenta is all over the place, then if you stick to, what I'll call, I'm sorry for these terms, the first grade truther. Maybe I should put it a little bit differently, because that implies, well, I'm always right. But you know what I'm saying. It's not going far enough. We need another term for that. But if you're going to stick to your guns, that, Matt, I see the magenta all over the place, but you don't understand what the secret societies and the Trilateral Commission can do. Google has a filter. It's always things we can understand. Google is putting the filter on all the old videos. See, it's so subtle, Matt. Even the Eagles don't notice when they go watch their old videos. See, I don't think it's that for a lot of reasons. All right, there's a lot of recordings that they wouldn't be able to get to. And people would say, why is this all hued red? It's not that simple. I don't know why I'm stressing that, except it's kind of the same situation we've been through over the past 15 years. Every time we've looked for an explanation for something very strange, but try to put it in, quote, pedestrian terms, or that toy box that we can understand. Oh, these 33s that keep appearing on license plates or on billboards behind, quote, questionable events. Oh, that's all planted. We know I know I'm keep going back to that same example, but we've evolved out of that. And let's not make the same mistake here. I'm not just saying I believe what's happening with the magenta is this because I want to avoid mistakes. No, I truly believe this is what's happening. This magenta color represents something. It's a symptom of something. It has invaded the digital. What does that mean, Matt? I don't even know what that means. I better be able to explain it a little bit later, but let's take this one step at a time. If something has invaded the digital, then to me, it's on its way to wanting or desiring to invade the analog or the real world. Right? Why does that little woman from Poltergeist seem to, I don't want to scare you. Guys, it's all fun. It doesn't work on us. This is all fun. I don't know how dark this is going to get, but it's just really. There's no, somebody from Australia, I'm not going to say a name, emailed me, Matt, watch this video. You know this, soul trap. So no, we're not in a soul trap. Okay, you place yourself, sometimes you go to the mall, you place yourself in an escape room, right? It's hard to get out or whatever. Your higher self maybe it did place you in some sort of escape room. Maybe there's a lot you need to do here, but you're not trapped totally. Even in that horrible, wretched notion of Buddhism, you're not totally trapped. 10 to 20,000, 100,000 lifetimes. I mean, you're not totally trapped, even with that wretched, horrible, depressing, want to jump off a bridge Buddhist presentation. So the point is, okay, it could get dark, but we're off the ship. We're on a worry about yourself. Not going to do it. We're on a worry about yourself personal journey. We know now to get off the ship, and we know to row away from it. Whatever they're going to do to reality, it affects the masses, I agree. It does not affect us. In fact, the fact that all this craziness is going on and we can look back and notice it one last time, it's the greatest news of all time for us. Here's a different way to present the craziness that I'm talking about here. Backing up one more time, do we agree that the creeps generally know how this reality works? Yeah, we generally agree. Do they understand everything? No, but they understand 1,000 times more than the masses are given. I think most university research park scientists the real creeps know that they're spinning their wheels and their scientific investigations are in the wrong place, and they don't care. They just want to keep it funded, keep the money multiplier going, keep it going. They understand how this reality works. So from the creep's perspective, see, we're all, obviously, we come in here, Tommy, the deaf, dumb, and blind kid. We're always playing catch up. Now we're in the rowboat rowing away. It doesn't matter. Matt, is it important that we understand this? No. It's fun to analyze reality. It's not important at all that we understand it, other than this one little thing. I think having the right armor on, or always polishing the armor, means we continue to notice their shenanigans. We continue to notice when reality shifts a bit, and we just polish our armor up a bit. There's nothing you need more than this. Oh, yeah, I noticed, Matt, that this magenta is all over the place, and they probably have some dark intentions, and it doesn't work on me. And then, go get a hot dog or go get a banana or something. That's all. We don't need to do any more than that. But that base level of seeing it, continually to see that they're up to something. But don't we need to know what they're up to? No, we don't. Just seeing that they're up to something is enough. This might not be the best example, but the message is all that matters. The magic show example again, but just imagine real young kids, like kindergarten, and one kid stands up and says to the other kindergartners, "This is all bullshit. He didn't really do that, or he must be hiding a card somewhere." See, the little kids, okay, they're not going to understand how the trick is done, but for the one kid to recognize that there's no magic going on. I mean, if you forget, most real little kids are going to think that this is a real magician. You're not going to know it's all tricks at that age. I mean, just go one level up. We are that one kid in the damn magic show calling this trick out, and every other kid saying, "Sit down, I want to see the rest of the show." That's what your best friend's saying. This may be a decent way to understand where I'm coming from regarding my interpretation of this color invading reality, or however we want to put it. I'm just saying, of noticing the invasion of the digital. So we always talk about the creeps at a creepy table. Does it work like that? No, probably not, but how else are we going to describe it? I don't think they would be saying anything about the actions on the ground. I don't think they'd be talking about what moves they're making to do this. I think they would be observing what's happening, but not that their tactics were responsible for it. So, quote, around the creepy table, they're not going to say, "Look what our unit in Switzerland's doing here," or our people in Google to put the filter over the magenta. "Look how we're pushing the magenta out in Godzilla, and with T-Mobile now has more patents and trademarks on more different hues of magenta." And I don't think it would be like tactic and strategic. I think at the creepy table, they would be like putting on the music video and saying, "Look, see the hue?" Not that they didn't do anything, but they're saying whatever's being done that's dark here, they would notice it's working, not that they did anything or what, it's something that they understand, a mechanism as to how this reality works. They would notice it as we're noticing it, but they wouldn't just notice it, they would expect it, because I think they know what the magenta is a symptom of or what it represents. But it's not all or none either. They do facilitate the magenta through intentional tactics, and antics as well. So it's both. I should have been crystal clear on this a few minutes ago. For example, the Godzilla movie that's coming out in a month or two, where Godzilla teams up with King Kong. The spines all over Godzilla's back, bright, glowing magenta. I mean, it's strange. Why is a lizard monster creature glows with a light, a neon type magenta color, just bleeds off Godzilla's back in certain scenes? No, I don't think that's Matt, is that bleeding through reality? No, that is the creeps understanding what the magenta means as it becomes more prominent in this reality, and they're doing the best they can to push out the magenta, just as T-Mobile does. So it's both. Lou from Back to School is nice, and he's tough. I'm not going to say it, but it's both. Looking at the time of the video, you can hear somebody screaming at me, and you would be right. I apologize. Matt, not everybody's been here for every video for the past 2 or 3 years. What does the magenta mean? I mean, not that we totally understand it, but in general, stop talking about it bleeding through reality. What does it mean at the base level? Yeah, okay. We don't know exactly, but I'll give you my best take on it and a summary for those. We've been over this a few times, but in case you forget. One, originally noticed the emerald green color. It's overuse and overpresentation, mostly in movies, of course, because that's where you present a color. You don't really present a color very well in a book. So that represents, we've done whole videos on it. Let's just get right to the point. In some way, the emerald green represents the illusion of this world. Of course, that is put way too simply. It is far more complicated than that, and there's certain aspects of it, of course, I don't understand. In general, I'm pretty confident in saying the emerald green, when it's a presentation from media or not milk, it represents the illusion of this world. It's been all over the place in art and media, from the Wizard of Oz's castle, through the main color that runs through the movie Jumanji, to the end of The Great Gatsby, Daisy's Dock, emerald green. It's been all over the place. It's almost like they tried to hijack it. It's not evil, the emerald green, in my opinion. I think the emerald green is a very natural part of this reality, even as going as far as it's the color of trees and grass and things like that. It's almost like in a way they tried to hijack it. So, okay, that's the emerald green. That's what I initially noticed first. This presentation is too prominent. It's too all over the place. The magenta was not, I did not notice that, was brought to my attention by others. But my interpretation of the magenta presentation, which once you notice it, then you just see it everywhere. And about 3 years ago, we just said, this is ridiculous, how many times this is showing up. And it's not just a trend or a fad. That's how your best friend would explain it away, like they run their scripts to explain everything away. To me, it represents, I always say human being 2.0, then they want to evolve, devolve really is what it is, but human being 10.0, human being 666.0. Each devolution, I think, moves the real spirited being, or human in their terms. We don't use their terms in terms of what they call us. I'm not Homo sapien. I'm not cisgendered either. I am kind of what it suggests, but I don't use their terms. It wants to move us, this thing, not milk, wants to move the human, the real being, closer incrementally towards a digital environment. I think the magenta represents, is kind of a symptom of, you could say, them being successful at moving a society or people slowly towards a digital environment, whatever that means. It means operating inside a computer, being actually a digital character in like the movie The 13th Floor, Ray Kurzweil's brain chip. It's almost to me like, and again, this is, do I know? Of course not. It's all speculation at this point. But in general, we agree there's something sinister going on regarding the magenta. don't get the same feeling regarding that color as I do and many do with the emerald green. Maybe they tried to turn it inside out, the emerald green, but the emerald green on its own is natural. There's not one person that dabbles in these sorts of investigations that said, no, Matt, the magenta, actually there is one person. I'm going to say not many people would say the magenta is clean and pure and good. One person, I remember a comment, it just came to me, commented, I don't know, a year and a half ago, saying they were on a DMT trip or an ayahuasca trip, and there was at the heart of the center of all existence is a very positive being that just radiated with magenta. They said, well, that's not a big sample size for me to change my opinion that it is dark. It is a symptom of them doing things to reality, or reality devolving into a lower state, a lower place. Other than a few flowers that you could call 100% magenta, it really doesn't exist in nature for the most part. Naturally, doesn't exist in nature naturally. Is that some kind of oxymoron or something? Can it be said like that? And somebody screaming out the aurora borealis, but yeah, that could be a manipulation. I know people. It's like a Mandela effect for many people. People will tell me straight up that they've watched the aurora borealis their whole life, and it was 95% emerald green, and now it is a reddish emerald green as well with a magenta. Magenta is just a weird color. It's just strange. I mean, green, how do we used to memorize it for science class? The colors of the rainbow, the natural spectrum, Roy, G, Biv, red, orange, green, right? G, and then right in the middle, when you put that hose up into the sun and spray, it's that color, it's very natural, the colors of the rainbow, green, right in the middle of it. They say magenta's not there, and it has no wavelength, some say. Others argue it must have a wavelength, but others point out it's the exact opposite, or some way an inverse to the emerald green. Magenta is now in the aurora borealis, but that doesn't mean it's a natural part of what the aurora borealis has always been or should be. That by itself could be a physical manipulation. Somebody saying, Matt, you know what chemicals are in the air? That's, again, a very physical, on the ground, asshole dark, through their tactics, explaining away how the magenta is coming forth just through what the asshole dark is up to with its minions on the ground. Minions on the ground. So they'll say there is a chemical cause, something in the atmosphere, why the aurora borealis or the northern lights now has this huge reddish magenta color. Others may say what's happening with the northern lights is like a Mandela effect, where the emerald green mixing with the magenta in the aurora borealis or the northern lights is basically like an announcement of a change to reality itself. It can't be explained away by chemicals or nano dust in the air or whatever. Could be at the same sort of presentation as me saying it's showing up in old videos. No matter what your take on my presentation is thus far, it's pretty hard to be in 180-degree disagreement with me on this if you remember the aurora borealis or northern lights being like emerald green, and that's what you remember as a kid, whether you've seen them or not. And now it looks funny to you, all this red and magenta. If you're noticing that change, then yeah, I'm saying, of course, they go hand in hand in a way to what I'm putting forth here. As many of you know, I'm very Mandela affected. So if there seems to be a change in the aurora borealis, where people that grew up with it, I've never seen it, but in Denmark or Sweden or Iceland or in Canada or wherever, you can see it from Maine or wherever. It doesn't come down to Pennsylvania too often, and the few times over the last 40 years it has, I haven't seen it. But many people have claimed to me that it was 90 whatever percent greenish, emerald green. There's way too much red. Okay, fine. Many of us do agree with that. But I'm not going to stop at the same toy box explanations. One of the reasons I'm not going to stop there is because I'm very Mandela affected. So I've seen things just shift, okay? So it's not just explained away that the aurora is red and magenta today because of chemicals or what Bill you-know-who wants to put up there to combat primate change or global charming. And no, it's not. It could be that. But I'm not going to stop there in terms of possible explanations. Will I leave on the table that it is reflecting a different reality, and potentially people that remember as a kid that it was always partially red or magenta, the northern lights? I would say they're probably remembering correctly, because that's the way these types of changes work. They're retrocausal. They change. It never was a change. If there is a change, there never was, because all of past history reflects what exists today. Therefore, by definition, nothing ever changed. The Northern Lights could be that as well. I've never seen it. I'm no expert on it. I can only spend more time on what things like Jeff and I have researched. This ridiculous magenta popping up in endless numbers of old videos. And I've been talking about music videos, and I hope I'll try to show you a few clips. I don't know if I still have it. I'll try to find his old email, but if not, I'll describe it. I mean, just old. He researches tons and tons of old, let's just say 7/11, 2001 Big Day videos. He's watched, I don't know how many, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of home movies, somebody going up into South Tower 5 days before the event, or the month before the event. Just home movie after home movie he's looked at, 1,000 more than I have. And he's noticed so many strange anomalies in them. Not just the magenta, that's what we've been focused on recently. And the one I hope to find is there's this magenta hue all over everything. And what he's found is all sorts of strange, I don't know, retrocausalities, or just things that pop up regarding people's home video at the towers, the month or the day or the year of. That's just, I don't know. There's so many strange things. It's hard to explain away, but I don't want to stray and get off the topic here. We have talked about why all those strange things have potentially popped up in the old 7/11, 2001 videos, home movie videos that could be related to the phenomenon of retrocausality. The Peter Stuyvesant short commercial that was played in movie theaters in certain countries in Europe in the late 70s for Peter Stuyvesant cigarettes, we've looked at that in a video like 3 times at least, maybe even 4 times. There's so many allusions, or some would say in the truth could be predictive programming, but it's not that. The predictive programming is a hijack to what's probably really happening. These are allusions, and it could be also retrocausal. Let's just say hints on the big day that would be coming. So you have this 2-bit commercial, Peter Stuyvesant cigarettes, shown before, again, a movie in certain theaters. I don't know, 1978. I don't know what it was. It takes place in New York City. These couples roaming around New York City. Now, we've looked at, you know how many references there are to what would be coming in 2001. The woman stands right next to the gigantic 9 sculpture, and then this number forms an 11, and actually a reflection of the towers themselves form the 11. Then there's this gematria. Then there's this bird that flies through 2 twin buildings, not the towers, but 2 buildings that are twins. But the way the bird flies and the position of the camera is exactly the famous CNN footage of the way United was positioned in that footage. I mean, it's just too many things. So there's only 2 options here. One, it's just a coincidence, and if it's the only thing we ever looked at in our whole lives, the Peter Stuyvesant cigarette commercial, yeah, we chalk it up as a coincidence, but that's like what, 1 of 1,000 things now that has predictive references, allusions to the big day. There's so many things. It's in the movie Back to the Future. Now, unless you think, I guess when we first started out, we thought it was all planted by creeps. We'll do this one more time. Well, Matt, you're going to do it again in the future. I will, because it's one of my favorite things to do. Whoever put that 2-bit Peter Stuyvesant cigarette commercial together in 1978, the bat phone rang. And, let's not do the whole role play. Who's doing the commercial? You need to put in this element, this gematria, put in this 9, have somebody standing next to 2 things that look like an 11. Why do I need to do all that? Unless you think the bat phone rang every single time, which is ridiculous at this point. Exactly how it happens, we don't know. Right now, we're stuck on it's retrocausal. It didn't exist. Maybe it did exist, but it was channeled in some way by the producers or directors of the cigarette commercial. Either way, it's supernatural. It's other things that can't be explained in the same old toy box, or the creeps made a phone call. So basically, we're saying the same thing is happening with the magenta. If the Peter Stuyvesant commercial, it can be affected in 1978, where it's 15 things in a way, some directly, some more subtly predict what would be coming in 2001, then you say, how did the Peter Stuyvesant commercial do it? Was it changed in arrears? Was it changed retrocausally? Did the directors, who knows? But there's something not of this world going on. Again, if that cigarette commercial was all we had, we wouldn't have much. We've seen, 1,000 of these things over many, many years of looking at them. So I'm saying the magenta, I'm so confused, magenta. The magenta, that's the color, not the magenta. That could be something similar. Time, works in both directions. It's just the fooling of the senses where it just seems like it just goes out in one direction. And, we're completely fooled in this body, in these senses. That's why I always tease Richard Feynman. He's rolling around. Always tease him. He's wrong. He stresses, if it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. Your experiments don't tell you jack shit about reality coming in through senses that work for the wrong team. Maybe that's the ultimate mockery of CERN. Through experimentation and constant reconfiguring machinery and lab testing or whatever they do down there with the weasel. Remember the weasel story? Through experimentation, we're going to have a better understanding of the origin of the universe. Maybe that's the mockery of the whole thing. We're back in the backest of dark rooms. They're probably saying, there's no understanding the predicament here or what's going on in what's called this universe or this reality through experiment. It might be the gigantic mockery, that you just get a sense. It's like Melvin and Bezos to a degree, where Melvin said, Bezos, how are we going to screw these people over this week? It's like, how are we going to get these people to believe that their world is as real as we say it is? Well, the next step, we're going to build this gigantic tube thing. It's really a water slide for the creeps, underground water slide, probably called CERN. And it's this multi-billion-dollar experiment. They probably do send their little particles around like Great Adventure and Six Flags Magic Mountain roller coasters. They probably do all that. But the mockery of it is we'll make this gigantic presentation called particle colliders, and people will think, the masses will think, this is the forefront. This is the epitome or apex of science in terms of understanding reality, where we came from. When they understand, the creeps know that sort of science in that direction gets nowhere. They know this, but they still, again, that's why I alluded to earlier, all the university research parks, they know this, the way these experiments are being conducted, or the way this group over here is trying to cure cancer. These creeps know things. They know that it will go nowhere. Yet they're absolutely, I was going to say, fine with them spinning wheels. They're thrilled with them spinning wheels. They never want these groups outside of their own little inner circles to find the real answers. I think a good example of like what the creepy table knows versus what people believe the forefront of science knows, two completely different things, is like so many different topics we could talk about. But the best example, I think, is always researching or trying to do scientific experiments to determine smaller and smaller particles. So, okay, you have the creepy table over here. I think they understand the nature of reality. And then they look over here at scientists who are like, to them, rats on a treadmill and funded by them, but wanting them to get nowhere. So 1870, whatever, somebody says, this molecule here is composed of something called the atom, or with smaller and smaller parts. And then see how it's literally rats on a treadmill. Then the atom in 1920, I don't know the dates, but somebody said, oh, that's composed of an electron, a proton, and a neutron. That electron spin around. Oh, wow, that's great. So what's next? Oh, let's look for smaller and smaller particles. Then 2000 and whatever, the Higgs boson, Dig Dug boson, or whatever. But Dig Dug was a video game that I played in the late 80s. Whatever. What's the next? Oh, well, we got the Higgs boson. I could just make shit up. Well, the Mick Quark, the MCK for my name, the Mick Quark. That's what the Higgs boson is made up of. So you can't go, obviously the creep, just like any fool sitting here in a frayed sweatshirt, knows you can't just go smaller and smaller particles, because eventually, by definition, something has to be composed of itself, which is impossible. Or, you could go smaller and smaller parts through infinity. Well, that should tell you about the nature of reality there. So the creeps know this. They know that whatever scientists actually are trying their best at going to work at particle accelerators or whatever their damn things are, they know that branch of science is a waste of time. I think the group that, say, Henry Kissinger reported into, that small group, they understand this. And they're happy with the rats on the treadmill spinning their wheels, looking for smaller and smaller parts. Any idiot that would try to find a smaller part on the Higgs boson, a second grader can understand you can't do the Russian nesting doll thing forever. Something, where's the scientific explanation that says, well, Matt, people have come forth, white papers from universities or whatever, that said you can't then have something then made up of itself, and we have to understand the whole nature of reality is not what it appears to be. I think those white papers or research reports by very smart people at universities or Wheeler Labs or whatever, I think they existed for a short time until the Not Null came in and said, no, we can't put this in the New England Journal of Medicine or in Scientific American or whatever. And if idiots in frayed sweatshirts, that's me I'm referring to, can just through second grade common sense come up with basically this is how reality has to work, then smarter people in universities have, but this is not the type of science that's allowed. And then maybe that person and their family are promptly moved to David Bowie Island. Matt, don't let this break down. It's hard enough because the topic is so strange. You have to say serious. Okay, sorry. I'll try. But it's almost like a frequency or a resonance or a download where you just know that these researchers at all these different university research parks and their laboratories that exist all over the world. I mean, the funding of just major universities and the Ivy League or the University of Michigan or Stanford just by itself is hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is happening all over the world, even outside of those systems. They didn't sit down with every researcher and said, there's men in black, there's things called not null, this is accepted science, this is not accepted science. It's almost like the frequency of the radio station. They almost know what type of research will get them the accolades and the rewards and whatever they're looking for in the material life and getting whacked off in the coat closet during the holiday parties. And they almost know, just the way weather people know to never mention I have to put it in backwards, the tales of chemicals. That's the weather people, not one person on a weather channel will ever say anything about, if you've noticed planes, but they won't ever go there. Now, these people have not been talked to, every single one, thousands of weather people and weather boys and girls and young people that work on the weekends that want to become the main weather person from 6 to 6:30. They haven't been sat down by the men in black, but they just know not to ever go into certain places. It's the same with those that do the research at universities. They kind of sense that, maybe we should just keep supporting the particle collider that we want to get here at Purdue University. And the person that, we were going to write a white paper saying that why this branch of science, which is rather just rats on a treadmill furthering the Russian nesting doll idea, is completely a waste of time. But they kind of get a sense, if I write that paper, it might be the end of my career. They might not even be consciously aware of it. It's like a download. I don't think the men in black have gotten to everybody. The ship of fools operates on a frequency. Okay, that was quite a side discussion to what we were talking about. But getting back to the main point, to reiterate, the amount of magenta in this reality the last 3 or 4 years is unnatural. It's a symptom, when it bleeds through reality, it's a symptom of where they're taking reality. They add to it and they reinforce it, the creeps, in my opinion, by pushing the magenta themselves as much as possible. They're contributing, they're adding to what is trying to be accomplished, which ultimately we can't say anything more than trying to move the reality in some way closer to the digital, or the human being's existence closer to the digital. Well, Matt, how does the color magenta move a human, what they call a human, closer to the digital? It doesn't on its own. Well, we'll talk about it. It's a symptom of them doing that. So yeah, T-Mobile magenta, Godzilla magenta. The creeps are pushing as where they can push as well. The magenta has been bleeding into reality in many different ways. For example, Christmas lights. The people that have put up magenta Christmas lights in the tens of thousands this year, where 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a few hundred. I mean, it's off the charts regarding, it's on my street here. All right. It's still white, is still common, and red. I'm not saying it's all magenta, but it bleeds through and it appears in reality in so many different places. The people that put up the magenta Christmas lights in my town, for example, did they get a call from the men in black? Well, of course not. Are they all doing it because it's the trendy color? It's what's in? No, and it's not about a trend. It's not. Some people are following the trend. It's not all or none. 1 out of 5 people maybe say, look, these guys down here, I've never seen magenta Christmas lights or on a tree, or let's do that. Okay, some do it for that reason. They're sold in stores more. Target or Walmart make the magenta color more available. Okay, that's all going on. Sure, it's a combination of factors. I don't know any other way to put it, and this makes no sense. The reality itself, the dark part, like the plumber's ass crack that sits on the natural world, wants as much magenta as it can get away with. Now, if somebody's been screaming at me for 15 minutes saying, Matt, stop saying it's just a symptom, it's more sinister, through the magenta wavelength, it's a mind control. Look, I keep anything on the table. I hear you yelling at me. Whatever we're seeing, a certain frequency, it could be a blending of frequencies, is going into the eye, right? And what is the effect on the brain? And does it pacify, or is it a mind altering? And what is it? Does it make those that observe so much magenta more able to go along with the suggestion of what this thing here that represents itself through its systems and its government wants the people to do? Like mind control. I don't like using that word, but that's too simple. But yeah, I hear you. That's possible. Sure it is. I just think it's a little more than that. I'm not taking that off the table. It could be a more simpler mechanism that I'm describing. I just don't think it's that. Could be partially that. Okay, here's another example. Using the book series I've referenced many times. Go ahead, laugh it up. The Michael Moorcock Elric series. Go ahead, laugh it up. Hardy har har. Okay, it's my favorite sci-fi series, and there's some truth drops. Michael Moorcock knows something. Okay, who knows what his occult background is, but he's if you read all his shit, the guy knows something, or is in some sort of mystery school or whatever they call those places. So all this multiverse stuff and infinite worlds, this Michael Moorcock might have been the first in the late 60s to start writing about it. And one of the themes of this Elric, the eternal champion, who wants to be more on the chaos side. It's not good and evil in the book series. It's presented as the gods of chaos against the gods of law. And the idea is, at least for the human, they want the balance. So the eternal champions like Elric, if a world or a realm falls out of balance, like our world or realm is falling out of balance, the eternal champion fights to restore the balance. So naturally, his ancestors favor, quote, like evil and chaos. Their gods are of that sect or pantheon, but he will fight on the side of law on another realm to restore balance. And the point is this: a world or a realm where is out of balance, a chaos realm where the gods of evil or chaos, the dukes of hell is some of the gods even in the book series, where they've taken over a realm, it's out of balance, and it's just nothing holds form. It's chaos. Nothing can keep shape. Swirling of colors, with 1 second them being beautiful and the next second being disgusting. Nothing is solid. No person can survive there. It's a realm that has been taken over fully by chaos. And so, Matt, does that mean it would be best if law? Well, no, law is just as bad. The balance is what is stressed in the book series. A world that's all where law has won, the gods of law has won, are just as bad. It's like, say, it's all white. Everything is, you can't make anything out. It's just straight lines. There is no world. There is no grass. It's just this place nobody would want to be. It's the exact opposite of the chaos realm. So the point is, it's like this world, it's a chaos realm where it's infected with chaos in this book series. Things start to, like what's happening in our world, starts to break down. Nothing makes sense anymore. When you go to research, this is another thing we need to talk about. When you go to research something, you can't get a straight answer anymore on a lot of different things. That's a reality symptom we need to talk about. So it's breaking down. It is out of balance here, this place. You get a sense. And if we're trying to restore balance, we're not doing a great job of it, mostly because the people here believe that we're not here to restore balance and fight for the realm. We're here to, I'm not going to do it that way, but we're here to worry about ourselves and make sure we do what we need to do and get out of here. And I don't think it's selfish. That's just the way this reality is. I don't think we're here to fight on the other side because it's futile, like the Borg asking the Enterprise to surrender. So it's like the Magenta. These things are bleeding into reality, and it's becoming like these realms of chaos here. And does that mean someday, 2 generations from now, 80% of everything here could be a magenta hue and people just will be born into that and think it's normal? It is possible. Yes, it's possible. But it's breaking down this reality on a lot of different fronts. And the magenta bleeding through, again, is just one thing. There's a lot of different things we can notice and talk about. And again, I believe it's not a direct target at people. I think it's a symptom of a realm moving too many steps towards a chaos realm, that type of thing. If I describe that, I don't know if this example worked, but I'm trying to do the best I can here. You talk about this stuff. Pretty damn tough. Could you imagine if somebody after a few weeks decided to come back to this channel for maybe an update on stoves? Or maybe he's talking about insulated chimneys today. Say, what the heck is that? Honey, what the hell is this? Could you imagine? What I said a few minutes ago has to be its own video, and I really haven't mentioned it, but I bet some of you shook your head to what I said a few minutes ago about when you go to research something, like you can't get an answer, or if you get an answer, it's conflicted in the next Google link, or it's just very strange. I'll give you one example of many that have happened to me in the last year. It has to do with the college football transfer portal. How these kids are popping. Oh, education's so important, right? They go to 2, 3 different schools. Some players have played on 5 different schools, and it's the education that they stress. Oh, sure, yeah. Now you try to say, well, can you play this week in week 8, say a month ago, and then can you play the next week on another team? Well, you can transfer in the middle of the season. I know they talk about windows being open and closed, but you can't get a straight answer on this. If you do transfer week to week, then can you play the next week? These rules should be very clear because you have up to 1,000 NCAA students transferring in a 6-month period. Or if you include all sports, thousands. So the kids know the rules. Why is it so hard to put that into a paragraph? You just can't get a straight answer. And this is just one example of many things I've noticed. It to me, it's a symptom of the breakdown of this whole place. So I'm not sure how long this is going to go, but just like to wrap it up now in case anybody, has to things they actually have to get done today. It's already very, very long. I appreciate you being here. But most importantly, no matter what you agree or disagree with on the magenta, most likely, if you're still with me in this video, you see how artificial it is in terms of how it's pushed and how many places this color shows up. The only thing that's important, once again, it's the same sentence. It doesn't matter how sinister it is from our perspective. It does not work, whatever it is, on us. So I think it's a lot of fun to analyze and to see what the creeps, as usual, are up to. But it's not anything that's going to... we notice it. We've already seen through the magic trick, once again, I don't believe we are in any way negatively affected by it. There is one proviso, and there's somebody been screaming at me figuratively. I've been listening to figuratively this entire video, and I might as well address it now. And it's like, how do we deal with this potential issue? Matt, you talk to real generative beings that not wants to propagate the magenta. Then they get a few channels, especially your channel, to propagate the magenta, to get how many generative beings thinking that the magenta is growing, it's out of control, its presentations are all over the place, thereby in some way, by the real people listening to me, facilitating it in some way. You don't think I think that that's a pitfall or trap that we have gotten sucked into in this community, not just this channel, but the whole truth research community for years and years? Yeah, but what am I supposed to... I've talked about this before. What am I supposed to do? The video today, guys, is something I'd like to talk about, but I can't say it because it could be propagating what the Not Milk wants. Matt, and I hear you screaming at me again, because we've talked about it, and I don't know how many real people are thinking about the topic, then how do we nullify it? By the way, I can hear you screaming at me. We rescind it. We say, if in any way And think on this and do it with me right now. If in any way, by us discussing this, you had hoped we would assist in the facilitation or the spreading of the magenta, that is not what we're doing here. In fact, it's just the opposite. We declare by decree, the more we talk about it and notice the potential sinister use of the magenta, the more it loses its effect, the more it loses its whatever power it had or tried to generate, the more it becomes impotent. If you can apply an ED term to a creepy residence or whatever, Matt, what you can't say that. You know what? We declare that, decree it. You know why? Because I said so. See, you can't have it both ways. If we're being used to help facilitate or propagate, then we have the power to take it all away. Uh-oh. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume in everything we've ever discussed, pretty much, we have been used to propagate. And then if that's the case, we're going to take it all away and remove it. And Matt, you start doing that, this channel won't be around. Well, if it goes away because of that, when we've really hit on something, and we know how effective it is, and everybody listening to me will start doing it like minute to minute daily. So not a good idea if that were to happen. So okay, see how we can just make up for it in 10 seconds? Why? Because we said so. Thanks for listening.